from Work Package 5, led by Adil Hassan, who's our Work Package 5 leader, who I believe we have online. Are you with us, Adil?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Oh, excellent, excellent. I shall be super fast because you probably want to hear from the more competent people than me. And we want to keep the time, otherwise I think Anne-Sophie won't tell me where to get some very good apple turnovers in Denmark. Okay, so WP5 is just a work package that is dealing with the really with the researchers and trying to help them to fulfill their desire of running their or doing their research across borders. So carrying out computation across borders or accessing data across borders. To enable more research to be done, and also across disciplines as well, which is quite nice. Hamish Struthers, the excellent Hamish Struthers, standing over there in Sweden, will give a description of the climate use case, and the excellent Abdul Rahman Azab, who I guess is sitting there, will give the oh yes, I can see the back of his head. There you go. Will give the a description of the biodiversity use cases, the natural languages, and also the sensitive data. So within Work Package 5, we cover a fairly wide area of disciplines, which is quite interesting, and a few common things are sort of popping out. Right, so over to you, Hamish.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Right, and my apologies for not being able to fully participate in the GA, but I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about the climate demonstrator. I will very much
sorry to interrupt you, Hamish. You are very low.
If you want to learn more details about the technicalities, there are some resources you can find, deliverables.
Hamish?
Hello.
Oh, Lena was saying that you're coming out a bit low, the volume.
Okay. See if I can.
Yeah. Do you have a microphone?
Does that improve? Is that improved?
Headset.
Any better?
No.
I hope you can hear me now.
No,
I can hear you fine.
We can hear you very, very vaguely, but and we yeah, and you we see you.
Right. I will try and speak up and.
Okay, it's a bit better.
Okay, great. Right. So just I won't focus on the details because there are resources you can find, both deliverables, and then the excellent Abdul Rahman will give some more details in the following talk. But I thought one thing I could perhaps give a very quick introduction to the climate modeling community, just to frame things a little bit and understand what we're trying to do here. And this picture here, what I'm trying to convey is that the community itself, it consists of quite a diverse range of some sub-disciplines, from climate, atmospheric dynamics all the way through to emission modeling and economics, even sociology is starting to come into this picture as well, for example. So it's quite a broad spectrum, and the history of these sub-disciplines with respect to use of HPC and infrastructures is also very, very diverse. So some groups have very long experience with HPC, and some are quite new and see things a little bit differently.
To interrupt you again, is it possible that you can speak a little bit louder or turn your volume up?
Okay. Does this help at all? Is that any better?
Yeah. Better. Very good.
No, I can't hear anything.
I think it was fine.
Okay. All right, I'll keep going, and my apologies for if there's an issue here, but I'll keep going because we're short of time and we don't want to run over things. So the objectives we're talking about here, really, ultimately, we want a seamless flow of new knowledge and results across the spectrum of disciplines, so that make sure that new knowledge is easily able to be shared across the whole of the community, and things like fair data and workflow and data management are important in this respect. So that's a bit of background and a bit of motivation. The current status that I see is that technically, yes, we can do this. Now, I would note that not everything is complete. We're not completely there yet, but yes, we can, in the sense that there's no obvious technical blocks that are obvious to us at this point, which is great. And I would say that with some confidence, because we have worked with a bit of a strategy in this climate use case, whereby we focused on reuse and repurposing of existing services or tools or technologies. And also there's quite a strong emphasis on collaboration. And both of these things allow us to lessen the risk and ensure that we work rather efficiently. So that's how we can have a bit of confidence that we're on the right track here. So with that being said, there are some issues. And firstly, I'd like to talk about how we're interacting with our researchers, with our users. These issues are not really new, and they're not specific to the climate modeling community. But to really get sustainable and meaningful engagement with the users, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work, actually. And that's not to say that our users don't appreciate what we're trying to do. They understand that it's important and they appreciate it, but they're very much of the mind, it feels to me that they very much think that this is infrastructure work, this is not research. We do research and you fix our infrastructure and present it to us. The researchers themselves always tend to say that they don't have the time to get meaningfully involved in infrastructure. So that's one issue. And then onboarding of users onto the demonstrators, again, this is relatively obvious, but it's not easy to motivate users to make any significant commitment to a new system when it's only ever a demonstrator rather than a production service. So people don't want to spend a lot of time and a lot of effort reworking how their workflows if we can't guarantee that the systems are not going to be sustained beyond the end of the project. So these are things that we're working through with our users. On the other hand, on the other side of things, issues with the service providers, I think, and specifically talking about taking the excellent work that has been done from a demonstrator case into production, then, and this is a personal reflection more than anything else, I don't know that it's official WP5, but whenever this type of discussion comes up with the service providers, it very quickly the discussions turn to obstacles. We can't do this because so and so and so forth, and we're still waiting. We're still hoping. We still haven't seen a pathway forward, even if it's a potential pathway. Obviously, there's going to be work to be done, but But at this point, we're really looking for some kind of indication that there is a pathway forward for taking this excellent work that's being done into production. Because of course, we want this work to be sustained, and there's a danger that if it's not maintained, then it will be simply put on a shelf and forgotten, and that would be somewhat disappointing. So that's where our thinking is at the moment here. And that's really kind of hopefully gives you a bit of a flavor of where we are at the moment. Just for to provoke some discussion, maybe I put this picture up, and this I will try and devolve some responsibility to Adel for this. This is inspired by an anecdote that he described to us, but and I would say I'm absolutely not advocating any kind of commercial model, for sure. But when the interaction between a provider and a user is financial, or at least in some way related to finance, then that seems to break down a lot of the barriers that become the transactions become very simple. And maybe that model gives us something that we can learn from. So that's just a little thought-provoking final slide from me. But thank you very much. And again, I apologize for technical problems.
Thank you very much, Hamish. Are there any questions for Hamish? I think it's worth mentioning also, it's mostly a comment, Hamish. I know that the climate community really has a strong collaboration with EOSC-Life, and EOSC-Life is 13 SV within life sciences. And here, I know you have really been adopting the life science change into the climate community very successfully. So I think this is really a very strong use case and demonstration that you are doing in Work Package 5, and that is true sustaining in my view, because there you're really adopting and using it and going to continue that path. So, but thank you very much, Hamish, for your giving us your insight. And I think we will move over to Abdul Rahman. I saw you. Yeah, you're there.
You hear me? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so my name is Abdurrahman Azab. I work at the University of Oslo, and I'm leading these tasks, the cross-border analysis tasks and the sensitive data tasks within Work Package 5. Today, I will talk to you about our work in both, taking into account the use cases. So in task 5.2, the cross-border analysis, it's mainly about cross-border data processing workflows and virtual laboratories, packaging and containerization of tools, and perform as a service for scientific cloud computing and cloud-native execution mechanisms. Starting with what we are doing for machine learning for the cloud modeling. So there is something called the Earth energy budget, how much energy the Earth takes and how much energy the Earth gives back. And this is in the units of aerosols. To compute the transfer and the progress of that transfer of aerosols coming to the Earth and going back to the Earth. To define this is very complex, and it requires a lot of complex and slow computing. If you do this on HPC resources, it will take a lot of compute hours and a lot of compute time. So what they do is that they do this with machine learning, with TensorFlow. So you do the some of the slow computing that consumes a lot of resources. You give them the input and you take the output. And you do this a few times. They will take their time, that's fine. And then use this input and output to train the neural network. And the neural network can be consisting of several layers. Each layer consists of a number of neurons. And to use these inputs and outputs to train the model, building the weights for the inputs of the neural network, and then use this model with the input and give the output, it will be much faster. And this is called supervised learning. Non-supervised learning, that you train the network without having any inputs or outputs. This actually proved to be much faster, and they have developed this TensorFlow tools in containers, and it is running in multiple of the HPC systems. So it is a very portable solution. Now, cross-border computing through portals. We have two portals. The Galaxy, which is originally a bioinformatics portal, but it can be used for several scientific use cases, and PlotoF portal. Starting with Galaxy, we have a very interesting use case here. So Galaxy is mainly a tool wrapper. So you have the web interface. On the left-hand side, you have a list of tools. Right-hand side, you have your data, and then you run these tools to analyze the data. Galaxy can be connected to HPC backend. The problem that we have here is analyzing big data. So we have the big data on object store, like S3. And we want to process this big data on HPC cluster. First, we want to make sure that we don't move this big data long distance, because it will be an overhead for the data transfer. And also, you want all of this to be managed by the user-friendly interface. The traditional way with Galaxy is that you connect Galaxy to the storage, and this storage has to be either the object store or the HPC. So if you want to move data from here, from the object store to the HPC, it has to go first from the object store to Galaxy, and then from Galaxy to the HPC. And this is a lot of overhead. If you have the Galaxy server in the US and the object store in Germany and the HPC in Norway, it will be a lot of problems. So what the solution that we, is it working? Maybe, yeah. Yeah. So the engineers from CSC, Theodorus, he developed this solution. So we have the object store here. The users will be able to see their data on the object store, and the data will be moved not through Galaxy, but directly from the object store, and do some streaming, so that only the part of the data that needs to be analyzed will be taken to the HPC. And once the data is analyzed, there will be a sync, so that you get the results on the HPC file system, on the Lustre file system, and then you will sync the results to the object store, so that Galaxy only points to the object store. No data will be transferred to Galaxy or back to the HPC. The users will be able to manage their data sets, which are here. You have your input data here, and your output data is synchronized between the Lustre file system. In this way, if you have large data sets like terabytes of data, through Galaxy, it will be submitted to the cluster which is closer to the data. If you have multiple clusters, and there will be no data movement between Galaxy and the object store. It will be just between the object store and the closest HPC system. For the biodiversity use case, it is mainly processing environmental ENA data. The data size here is not a problem, so it is relatively small. The problem here is that there is the PlotOF website, and it is connected to multiple HPC systems. Some of them are cloud-based, and some of them are HPC bare metal-based. If it is cloud-based, it's easy. You get your quota in the cloud, you build your HPC there, you have your virtual machines, you get your root access, you manage it, no problem. So your group can buy some quota with the amount of memory, some number of CPUs, how much money you have, you can buy as many as you want and connect it to your portal and do your computing. It's all yours. But when it comes to real HPC systems, no, it's thousands of users, and you need to run the job as yourself, and you have a quota, and you want to make sure that you don't destroy anything and you don't exceed your quota. So you do this through SSH as yourself. This is what we all do. But if you want to do this through a portal, what will happen? Normally, the portals run their jobs as one anonymous user. So the way that they did this, mainly with SNCC and also CSC, that there is a robot user, that this user is a system user, but it is main response, there is a sysadmin who is responsible for this user from the team that runs the portal. And the jobs will be submitted using this user to run on the HPC backend. Of course, this needs that the service provider acknowledge that they trust this way, that a robot user can run jobs, and they have someone to yell at and to criticize and to ask what is happening if this user misbehaves. But as long as we know this is working, and there is a link also when you get the slides to the recommended procedures for both HPC and cloud. For the natural language processing virtual laboratories, so the issue that they have for this natural language processing use case, they have a lot of software modules, and there is a lot of dependencies. And they wanted to have the same software modules running on several HPC systems. You want exactly the same environment to do exactly the same computing. We suggested to them to use containers in the beginning, but it didn't work, because containers, you need to have all the dependencies in one container. So they will end up having huge containers like virtual machines, and this doesn't work performance-wise. So they use, so this is what they need. They need to get the code, the source code of the software, get all dependencies of the software, test the installation, and have different versions to live side by side, and have all of this in several HPC systems. So what worked for them is a package manager called EasyBuild. So with this EasyBuild, you can manage multiple installations on several HPC systems and have a lot of dependencies with dependency trees between these softwares and their dependencies. But what they did is they had to install this tree on each of the HPC systems. It took them about 24 hours. They composed a Slurm job to run the installation of plus 40 modules on each of the HPC systems. And it took them about 5 PMs to do this. But then once this is done, then it will work for all users afterwards. So if we get a new HPC cluster included in this framework, then we will need to run this Slurm job that takes about 24 hours to get the modules installed, but everything will go smoothly after that. For 5.3, it's about cloud computing, and this is mainly about having transparent user access. We have two use cases or two modules here. The federated machine learning module that is for the biodiversity use case. You get the model, which is the source code and the tools. You have your data in your place, and you're computing close to you. You pull the tools and you run your analysis on the computing, analyzing your data on the closest compute to you. So all what you need to do is to connect to this central repository and get pull these tools and run them close to your data. Another platform is the uCloud, which is provided by the University of Southern Denmark. There can be multiple service providers for HPC, multiple service providers for storage. You can have your storage where you have access and where you have the quota. You can have your HPC or do the analysis where you have the quota. What uCloud does, it manages the orchestration and the AI and the access control. So you can choose from uCloud using a very user-friendly interface. And we have recorded some videos on this on a previous workshop. With this user-friendly interface, you can log into the HPC systems, you can log into the storage systems and say that I want to process this data on this HPC platform. Now moving to the sensitive data. A bit complex graph. I'll try to describe it. So what is the issue here? Well, there are several sensitive data service providers. Who's using sensitive data? No one, okay. So in Norway, we have TSD, Services for Sensitive Data. Here in Denmark, there is Computer Rome, for example, that is located at VTU. In Sweden, there is SNIC Bianca. In Finland, there is the Sensitive Data Service at CSC and ePOTA for the analysis of sensitive data on the cloud. If there is a researcher who have data in Norway and has a collaborator in Sweden, and that collaborator has the data in Sweden, and this researcher wants to give access for the other researchers to the data in Norway. So I want the Swedish researcher to access the Norwegian data because there is a collaboration. The way to do this right now is that the Swedish researcher who wants to access the Norwegian data has to go and to the Norwegian service provider and manually apply for access and get approval and provide this passport or whatever ID number, and this has to go manual. Just to go and look for, to look at a single data set. So he has to go through all of these manual steps. So what we are trying to do here is to do this in like in a machine way. So you are here a user having access to TSD in Norway. So you get a token that is like a text file with the hash code, and you get this token, and this token, it's like a passport, defines who you are and what you can do. So it verifies your identity, and you have the authority to look at this specific data set or to do this specific analysis. And then you go to Sweden, to Super. Super is the identity manager in Sweden. We have it FIDA in Norway, for example. But for Sweden, they have it also managing sensitive data access. If Super trusts TSD, they will get this token, they will know who you are, they will know what you can do, and they will create a temporary user for you because you just want to do one thing and go out. And they will give you another token where you can use to access their Bianca system and then do what you need to do and then go out. So this is what we are trying to implement in order to have federated access to sensitive data sets and do federated analysis of sensitive data sets in the Nordics. There are some issues. Oops, this is, okay, so the first one should be. So starting from the second one, level of assurance and identity verification. So not all sensitive data service providers, they have the same level of assurance. Some of them, they just, when they get a user to register, they need just the address, the name, the email. And some others, they require a copy of the passport. And some others, they require that, no, not a copy of the passport. You have to come physically and show us your passport to make sure that it is not fake. So we need to agree on this. This is still in discussion. And identity verification, how to verify that it is you, how to verify that this data belongs to you. There is some verification through camera, there is some verification through physical attendance, and it is not the same for the Nordic service providers. And finally, secure data transfer. If you want to do data transfer between the service providers, how to do this secure. Finally, I will talk about a case, sensitive data for Lumi. Who heard about Lumi? Everyone heard about Lumi. Okay, good. So Lumi is a huge supercomputer, and it is mainly for providing massive GPU resources. So it has a CPU partition, but mainly it is a GPU resource. And Lumi has several partitions, like Lumi C. Those are the main compute partitions. Lumi C for CPU and Lumi G for GPU, and we have AMD GPUs there. It has a lot of GPU nodes. We will get the first pilot in October, and then the GPU partition, we will get it next year. In some use cases, do you want to do heavy GPU analysis on sensitive data? And the service providers who are providing sensitive data, they don't have this amount of GPUs. They have a big cluster maybe, but they have maybe 4 GPU nodes, and they need more, and Lumi has this more. So we started thinking about how to do analysis of sensitive data on Lumi. One way is that if we have, for example, in computer room, it's a small cluster, and maybe the users there, they want to do GPU analysis. Can we move the data from computer room to a staging area on Lumi and do GPU analysis there and push the results back to computer room? Can we do the same for TSD or Bianca or ePOTA? This is one scenario. Another scenario is not to move it from the HPC service providers, but to have separate sensitive data archives that we can stream the data from these sensitive data archives to a staging area on Lumi and do the processing there. This is another scenario. But there are some issues, how we can do the streaming of data, how we can trust Lumi as a way for analyzing sensitive data. How can we manage the access control? So there are already some ongoing efforts, like the Pohori project. Pohori AI is used for managing quotas, CPU quotas and storage quotas. So we are thinking of using the Pohori AI to manage the HPC quotas and storage quotas on Lumi. And there is another AI that is called Elixir AI. This is more specific for managing access to sensitive data sets. Because when we talk about sensitive data, we don't care much about how big the data file is. We care who have access or who should have access to this specific data set. So there is a mechanism here with data access committee. This specific file, who decides, the owner can decide who can get access to this file. Not only the owner, but there is a data access committee that defines who can get access to this file and for how long and for what type of use and what are the consents that needs to be there. So this can be managed by Elixir AI, and they have a format of the token that is called JA4GH passport. So this is what we are trying to implement now, managing the access to sensitive data sets using Elixir AI and quotas, HPC, and storage using Pohori AI. What we need to do for getting this done, we need to coordinate with the sensitive data service providers. Lumi is not trusted for analyzing sensitive data yet, but TSD is trusted, computer room is trusted. So if we get the trust and the experience of these service providers, this will be a first step to get Lumi trusted for sensitive data. And we need to sign a data processor agreement for Lumi that is for sensitive data and do secure data upload and download mechanism from the storage to Lumi and back to the storage. Yes.
Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, I think we have a very short time for question.
Thank you. We've been talking very many times about moving data from here to there, and especially in this part where you evoked EasyBuild. And we all know, I mean, people who are, can you hear me?
Yeah.
People who are using these technologies usually couple EasyBuild with CVMFS. We know that there are actually three types of data, right? We have, or information. You have the modules, or the software. You have a big amount of data, which is a reference data, like biodatabases, which is used once, probably it's updated once a month, or probably even less often. And you have the real input data. Did you consider using it, or didn't I hear this technology especially evoked in this approach?
You mean CVMFS?
CVMFS, yes. Because you said they compile the same modules on 3 sites. Why should they do this?
You would use CVMFS if you have the possibility to share the modules among different sites. This is actually ongoing effort. Maybe Thomas was trying to do something like this, to have a shared repository among the Nordic HPC clusters with shared modules. And of course, if we have this, then CVMFS will be the way, because one person or one entity can have the write access and all of the others can have read access. And Elixir has this repository for both Singularity containers, Docker containers, and reference data. So this will be the way to go, but the politics is the is the problem here. Once the service providers get to agree that this is the way to go, okay, we can, technically it's totally easy, no problem. Yeah.
Maybe you have halfway answered my question already, because I was going to ask regarding the sensitive data across borders, if the main problems are technical or legal, bureaucratic.
Yeah, the main problem is never technical. Technically, everything can be done. I mean, it can be done in several ways. But the main problem is, let's not call it political, but I mean, it's about many things like security, data protection, but it's mainly about policies. So do we trust each other, and can we trust this resource, and what type of data protection is sufficient? GDPR is one thing. Local legislations can be even worse. So here in Denmark, they are the most strict ones in the Nordics, for example, regarding moving of data. Germany and France, they are very, very strict. In Germany, there are several regions. It's not one region. So this is what, if we agree on the policies and the conditions and the rules, then the technical implementation is the easiest.
Thank you very much, Abdurrahman. And I want to say thank you also to the whole team of BB5. Adil, Hamish, also you guys. These discussions can surely continue. But now we are moving on to work package 6, led by Minna Lappalainen from CSC. And Minna will be talking about the communication, engagement, and the knowledge hub, which has received very nice reviews from the Commission. So, yeah, welcome to you, Minna.
Okay, so nice to be here. and talk about the BB6. And so how much time do I have? 50 minutes, okay. So this is the short description about or overview about the BB6, and so we have already achieved quite much our deliverables and milestones also. And I think that I will just concentrate on talking about the objectives. And so I think that our objectives, they are quite good on track, but I would like you to pay attention number 2 and number 5. And this that we really somehow, okay, yeah, so that we just really use the community effort, so that okay. So that we really use this whole community and use this multiplying effect when you have these stakeholders and that's the way how we can build this connection through your networks. And then concerning number 5, so this is the knowledge hub, and that is also one of the main objectives for the whole project. So that was the 5th main targets, and so we have this now. I will dump this so that you remember that sorry, we launched this the beta version of the knowledge hub last year in our seminar, and I think that here the main point is here that check it out. It's easy to use, and so that we have really made a big effort with the knowledge hub, and it is a quite unique concept of the such kind of very user-friendly platform that we have really tried to talk to our stakeholders, so that they would find that there is something for me, and it is really like a service site, and there are in every section of the knowledge hub there are things that are really targeted to different stakeholders. And we have been talking here about the added value and so that everything what we do, they should offer added value for the stakeholder. So this is also the moment to think that what do our stakeholders need, so that how we can really bring this added value there. So there is just a short summary, so that we have the project website. That's a primary tool for the communications, but the knowledge hub is built for our stakeholders, and this is really like a user-friendly way to engage with EOS-Nordic, and so it contains all these kind of elements, and all in every section there is targeted information for the stakeholder. And I really want to focus here to the knowledge hub in this presentation, and I will just jump back because I will try to be a little bit quicker because I know that we are a little behind the schedule. So this is our approach in this project communication. So we use this kind of model that this is all the joint venture, and from here you can see that BB6 has a main role in the beginning, so that we build up the tools and platforms and accounts and a lot of also the materials, and then we support in creating these kind of events. Thank you, Sanne, for organizing this, and so there is a lot of support in this here still. But then when we moved down here, then it's so that we offer the stage, but the other work packages, they are the stars here, and so we just hope that you use these opportunities and tools that we are offering, and like the Knowledge Hub is really like one of the main targets of the whole project. So I really encourage you to think that how you can take the fully advantages of this nice platform that has been created. And like our reviewers, they said that it's a beautiful concept. And so I think that this last year, it should be really the year of the Knowledge Hub. And please think of your stakeholders. What do they need? And help us to so we will support you with this amount that try to make this communication user-friendly and targeted, so that the stakeholders think that, oh, this is good, this gives some added value for me. But the information, all the expertise, it's in your work packages, but I really hope that this Knowledge Hub would be like also the asset in the future, so that it is something different that we have created, and I think that we can make it a very good success, so that maybe the EOSC would be able to use similar kind of, so that we are like piloting this kind of model, and EOSC could be using this approach also later on. So then my biggest wish is really so that you think that what our stakeholders need, and we would be able to create this last year, the year of the Knowledge Hub. And we have some ideas here, so that, and we were already, many of you were yesterday already, so I don't go through this again, but Anne-Sophie was having a presentation yesterday, and we were talking about this, but this is a kind of like a homework now, so that really think about the how we can, because that was also one of the main actions that we got from the reviewers, so that how we will be able to improve the utilization of the Knowledge Hub and maximize the use. So this is something that we also have to report after this project is over. So this is something that we really have to pay attention. So this is really like that. Think how you can use your communities, and so that we give this multiple so that we can multiply the effort when you always think that what are the places where you can have that as a tool, and so I hope that, and it was nice for yesterday, for example, that you were you were talking about that for the service provider, so that it should be easy to use, and so that we could make like a success stories that how this is happening and what benefit the stakeholders can get. So there are different ways, and we will of course support in producing those different materials. But this is like a joint venture, as mentioned earlier. So let's do this together. So let's make this a success story. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minna. And while we shift presentations, are there any questions regarding the Knowledge Hub? I can only support what you are saying, Minna. Really, there was a very good comments from our reviewers from the Commission, and they see this as a regional blueprint of how we could form EOSC from a regional point of view. And so having the Knowledge Hub as a window open for our results, our tools, and support, your local support, and etc. So it's up to us to build it stronger and to make it work. Yeah, really, and yeah. So, but thank you very much, Minna, and to the whole BB6 team. And now we are reaching towards the end. We have Sarah Garavelli will give us the closing keynote for today's General Assembly meeting. And Sarah is leading Work Package 2. Sarah is from CSC, and she will be talking about sustainability. So we have to think of this, even though we are halfway, we must now start thinking on how are we going to sustain the results, the assets, the benefits that we are creating. So so we don't drop it on the floor. Yeah. But welcome to you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Lene, for the introduction. And so while we wait for the presentation, I mean, I know it was a long day, but we are still here, so we survive after the first face-to-face meeting after 2 years, so that's great. And also my presentation, I mean, I will keep it very short because I had my colleagues that did the hard job before. So they have already presented to you all the results of EOSC-Nordic. So what I'm going to present here is how we are going to approach the sustainability, how we have planned to do this work, and what we are planning to sustain. So it would be great if at the end of this presentation, I would like really to hear from you if you think that we are using the right approach, and if there are any assets that we haven't considered so far, maybe we should include. Okay. So that's what I would really like to hear from you. Thank you. Okay, so how we are approaching the EOSC-Nordic sustainability. As you know, sustainability is always the most tricky part for a European project because, of course, at the end of the project, the funding from the European Commission ends, sometimes the commitment from some of the partners. And so that's why now, 1 year to go towards the end of the project, we need to start thinking what really we can do after the end of the project. The first activity that we did was to identify the EOSC-Nordic assets, what we call key exploitable results. And we have tried to prioritize them in terms of what kind of value they can generate for the stakeholders and who are the stakeholders that can benefit from this value, because there is no point in sustaining something that doesn't generate any value for anyone. After that exercise, we have started thinking about potential sustainability pathways, and that's where we are today. after this meeting, the real work will start, meaning building the foundation for the future sustainability after the end of the project. Why? Because for some assets, the sustainability doesn't depend only on the partners, but also from external initiatives, from the general EOSC evolution and developments. So I've tried to summarize in the 3 following slides what are the results that we are considering for the EOSC-Nordic sustainability, starting from those that in our opinion can have an impact at European level. So this is something that has been generated in the region, so with these partners, but this can have a value also for the other regions, starting from the contribution to the EOSC developments. So you heard during the day that we have produced, for example, interoperability framework guidelines, and this is something that, as Ilya explained before, can be adopted by EOSC at large. So this could be something. All the activities done in terms of service compliance, checklists, and maturity model, that's also something that we can leave as a legacy to the whole EOSC, as well as the activity, the fair assessment model, and all the best practices and recommendations that Lars this morning explained we are trying to produce in Work Package 2. Another aspect that for which we are contributing to EOSC is that we are enriching somehow the EOSC offering, more or less, with the new services that will be onboarded in the portal. So that for sure will be left as a legacy to EOSC. What's instead the impact at the regional level? At regional level, EOSC Nordic for sure supported the improvement of the EOSC alignment and coordination in the region, thanks to the activities done through the policy workshops, but not only. The project facilitated also communication and exchange of experiences and best practices, also among the different national EOSC structures and the members of the EOSC Association. So this sort of dialogue has a value to grow as a region as well. The second asset that was key in the region was really to enabling the EOSC uptake and increasing the FAIR skills. We heard from Andreas all the activities done in terms of support for FAIR practices. A next number of data stewards have been trained in the region, and also all the support that has been done through the regional EOSC onboarding platform that has contributed to support the EOSC uptake in the region. And last but not least, we just heard from Minna also all the activities that has been done in terms of creating awareness of EOSC in the region through the EOSC Nordic website, including the Knowledge Hub and the Nordic community that we have built around EOSC. Finally, there is also an impact at organizational/community level. When we look at organization, the service providers that have onboarded that services in the portal, so they have a way to increase discoverability of their services at European level. So that's so far probably the only incentive, but that's something, and it has a value that cannot die after the end of the project. Otherwise, this would have been really just a waste of time. The second added value for organizations was the activity done in the context of machine actionable data management plans. So there, universities have worked together with different data management plans. They try to harmonize and adopt this new machine actionable model. From the community perspective, we heard before from the use cases presentations. So there were efforts to enable cross-border service provision. We heard about the X-Road effort or the proof of concept for the sensitive data architecture, but also cross-disciplinary research enablement. For example, the life science tools adopted by the earth science community. So summarizing, we can cluster the results of EOSC Nordic in 5 main areas. So we are generating either guidelines or models that can contribute to the EOSC developments. We have new services and tools, mainly those resulting from the demonstrators. We have started building a sort of platform for the EOSC alignment and coordination in the region. We did support activities, including training, and of course, the broader EOSC awareness. So these are the clusters or how we are bundling the results that we see coming out from EOSC-Nordic. And these are those that discussing with the work package leaders, we had discussion with the executive board and also with the NAIC board. We felt that these were the most important results that deserve at least thinking about the potential sustainability after the end of the project. So how do we approach now then the sustainability? So we have identified what we want to sustain. How do we plan to sustain them? So when we think about or we talk about sustainability, there are different pathways. The first one that immediately comes or pops into your mind is extra funding is required. True. For some of these assets, we need extra funding. Extra funding might mean, for example, some extra funding coming from NAIC in the region, or maybe New Horizon Europe or national regional opportunities. A second pathway could be more related to the adoption of some of the assets by specific organizations. Of course, this not always doesn't come for free, so maybe it's linked also to the previous category, but this really means that organizations or communities can plan to exploit or continue to use, for example, the services that they have used during the project. The third way of thinking about sustainability is really about the legacy that we have created or some results that we can hand over to other initiatives or more broadly, for example, to the EOSC Association or the EOSC Partnership. So these are the three streams that we are looking at to investigate the sustainability of the assets. Say that we have tried to map what could be the potential mapping of the assets into these pathways. And these are really the initial consideration. So when it comes to the dialogue, so one of the assets was how can we sustain in the future this platform that we have created to exchange communication and best practices among the different Nordic countries when it comes to EOSC. We have started discussion there with NAIC, and we are discussing with them if this could become one of the activity that NAIC is willing to support in the future. And we can also think of broadening this not just to the partners, but as I said before, it could be a good idea to include all the organization members of the EOSC Association, the EOSC national initiatives that are emerging. So in Finland, we have the Finnish Forum. In Sweden, we have the Swedish Research Council that is doing activities at national level. So there are also other actors dealing with EOSC, and together with the main players active in EOSC, we need to talk and exchange best practices. I think there was a question today or a comment whether the EOSC-Nordic is a different EOSC from the general EOSC. So my answer is not, but for sure there are nuances or the collaboration in the region can facilitate the influence of the EOSC development or maybe also the adoption of some of the results coming from EOSC. When it comes for the activities related to support, for example, the fair skills or the training in the fair area, so these are the more tricky at the moment to be envisaged as sustainable in the future, because of course this clearly requires effort and resources to sustain or to continue training after the end of the project on this specific topic. So there are options there. Maybe one option could be again NAIC, but other ideas could be to try to continue this activity in the context of other projects. For example, the Fairs Fair. Fairs Fair is coming to an end, but there are New Horizon Europe projects in the last course that were really focusing more or less on the same topics. So we can start a dialogue with these new initiatives and see if they can maybe bring forward this effort. When it comes to the adoption, This is really related to the services. So all the services and tools that you have heard today, we need to start discussion with the research communities involved in the demonstrators, with the service providers, also the service providers that have onboarded services in the portal. So we are expecting that after the end of the project, they will do some maintenance according to the EOSC guidelines to keep these services updated and live and accessible in the portal. So we need to discuss with them what kind of commitment they can put into this activity. And clearly, of course, there might be other regional funding or national funding to support some research projects, for example. The last area is about what we can hand over to other initiatives or, for example, to the EOSC in general. Here, I mean, we have heard from Willem this morning that there is the willingness from the EOSC Association to hear what EOSC-Nordic can deliver to them or how EOSC-Nordic can support them. That's exactly what we need to do for all the activities related to the guidelines that we have produced, the models that we are using, because these, of course, are interesting also beyond the region. So just to close this, clearly there are different paths for sustainability depending on the results, but also on the role of the results in the EOSC implementation. And we know that the EOSC is a changing landscape, and that's why it's worth, I mean, starting working on this now, but things might change, for example, in a year time. So we need to be flexible also to react. The sustainability of some assets requires extra funding. We are aware about this and we have started a discussion. And adoption as well does not come for free. So there might be also resources to be committed there. In terms of handover of activities and tools, there what we need to start to do from today, tonight, is to start the dialogue with the EOSC partnership, but also with other initiatives. For example, EOSC Future is the main implementation project, so many activities maybe can be continued in the context of EOSC Future. And that's it for my presentation. So I'm really happy to take any questions, or as I said before, if you have brilliant ideas on sustainability, or maybe there are assets that we haven't considered and you think are relevant, it would be good to hear.
It's just more of a comment. So from NIFOS Europe perspective of the other project, which is the regional one, so we also have identified the key exposable results and similar approach towards sustainability. So I think that we should really team up together, and especially towards the EOSC partnership and the association, and try to put the things that we find common and relevant for both regions on the agenda of the partnership to exploit that channel. Yeah? So I would like to keep that.
Yeah, I think that that's an excellent idea.
With this, yeah? So because, you know, if we have, because there is quite a good alignment of the exploitable results from our side as well, and, you know, from what I've seen that you have shown. So we can definitely capitalize on this and push the agenda together. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's a good idea. Any other comments?
Yeah, about the sustainability. It's an issue because it requires two things. It requires PMs for supporting the sustainability of the service, and it requires, in addition to this, maybe hardware resources and other resources, which means also money. So for service providers, sometimes they are not much interested in like funding the sustainability for themselves if they feel that this service is not of a good use for them or their use. And if they don't receive extra funding from outside, they are not very interested. And in NAIC, I'm not sure how long have you been in the discussion, but to my knowledge, it's only the Nordic Tier 1 services that NAIC is maintaining. But other than this NAIC's policy, until now, they don't support sustainability of operational services. So if you manage to get to this discussion more and to convince them otherwise, this will be very great. And the service providers will accept this model much better than just telling them you take the full responsibility and you maintain the services. I'm not sure what are your thoughts about this? Which model you see working in the way based on the discussions that you already had?
So I think that each case needs to be assessed in a different way, because as you said, so we are talking about two things: maintenance in some cases, and you mentioned also evolution or additional resources or functionalities for services. So when we talk about maintenance, I think that the answer is in the value that the service produces. As you said, if nobody is using the service, there is no point to sustain it or to maintain it, and that's we need to live with that, because simply it's not the case. Maybe it was a good demonstrator for something, but it's not really of value for the community. So for me, the answer to the service provider when approaches a community is that the community should show interest in that service and maybe also be willing to pay for the service somehow. When it comes to adding new resources or new functionalities or whatever, I think that that's more probably a question of finding the right funding stream. And I agree with you that in that case, probably another project or another funded initiative is needed. Whether this is part of the NAIC mandate, I don't know. So we have a NAIC representative here, we might ask. Maybe it's not part of that, but we need to live with that as well. Okay, so we cannot force something that is outside the mandate of NAIC. So that's why the work that we want to start doing now is really to analyze each of these assets that we have identified and put in contact the person responsible for that specific asset with those that might be the future pathway for sustainability and start a discussion. I think that overall we had around 15 results. We don't need, I mean, if at the end of the project we are able to sustain 8, in my opinion, it's already a great result. So, because we will have a justification of why the others maybe are not possible at this point in time, and maybe they need more time or future funding. So it's not, I don't think if we force sustainability, it won't work, right?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Sarah. And also to note that these are midterms results. So we will be seeing even more results coming out.
Exactly.
Yeah. If there are no other comments, I think we should give Sarah a big hand for closing. Yes, and then I would like to, I know Guzman is with us, and I would like to give the word to you.
Yes, thank you. So thanks to everybody for excellent presentations. I thought I could first comment a little bit.
Very low.
Is my sound low now?
Yeah, it's low.
Let's see. I use the headset.
Maybe it's your volume, actually.
Is it better now?
No, the same.
The same.
We can hear you vaguely.
Okay, so let me try to change. Is it better now? Was this any better? A little bit better. Okay. I'll have to live with a little bit better. So to comment a little bit just first on the previous talk and to what extent NAIC could take over the sustainability part. So in general, we do not do operations. So this is for the national providers to do, and the reason is that there is very scarce funding to the Nordic level. And the only exception is the Nordic Tier 1, which has a clear science-based argument. So in general, the national providers are in a much better position to offer this type of services because they are closer to the users. So we would need I think in the end, there needs to be a very good science case for this to happen. On the other hand, for coordination activities like organizing or facilitating a Nordic forum for EOSC discussions between providers, between user representatives, and also involving policymakers and funding agency representatives. I think that could be really useful. And so that is something that we will look into towards the end of the project. So this will be discussed next year. Other than that, I would like to thank all the presenters again. And I think this hybrid meeting has worked out well. I'm hoping for a less hybrid meeting next time, which doesn't mean a fully online meeting, but more like a fully physical meeting. So thanks again, and thanks also to the organizer, and have a safe trip home.
Thank you very much, Gudmund. And with these words, I also would like to say thank you very much for great participation, both